right. Hi, everybody. This is Jordan Castillo-Price. I'm the author of the ABCs of Spellcraft series, and I am here talking to Nick Hudson. Hi, Nick.
Hello. I am the narrator of the ABCs of Spellcraft, the audiobook versions, the two of them.
The two of them, that's right, because we just had one come out.
Yes, indeed.
So today I invited Nick to come talk with us because I am announcing a cute Spellcraft holiday story that is coming out next week, and he has agreed to do a reading for us.
I got to take a little advance read of this before doing the audio read, and it is sweet and it is adorable, and I hope everybody likes it.
Oh, me too.
Chapter 1, Dixon. Winter. It's the time of year when frost etches pretty pictures on your windows, and the world outside is nestled in a pretty white blanket. A time when you get to snuggle up in your mismatched mittens, and no one comments on how many hot chocolates you've had, if you don't start acting too hyper, anyhow. I've always had a fondness for winter, and since there was snow on the ground and a nip in the air back when I first met Yuri, now I love it even more. December is also a traditionally lucrative time for my people. While it's widely known that spellcraft has no business in politics or religion, nowadays Christmas is pretty secular, and who wouldn't want to impress their special someone with a bespoke piece of crafting? My family had been working hard these past few weeks, and if my dad had his druthers, Practical Pen would be open on Christmas Eve to snag those last-minute shoppers. But our official seer had negotiated Christmas Eve as one of his annual days off, and we didn't dare break his contract by letting Yuri fill his shoes, or wield his paintbrush, since shoes don't really have anything to do with spellcraft. And Rufus Claude has unusually small feet. Speaking of feet, there was still a bit of snow clinging to my shoes. I stomped it off on the welcome mat in my parents' vestibule, then hung up my winter coat on the nearby coat tree. It was actually more like an alien life form than a tree with a giant ball of winter coats up top that took up half the room. I'm not sure it was even possible to dig down to the innermost layers anymore, but if you did, you'd probably find something so old it'd come back in style again, maybe more than once. My mother hustled in as I was draping my coat over the top of the coat ball. Once my hands were free, she enveloped me in a big, squishy hug and greeted me with, "Where's Yuri?" I adored the way she loved him as much as I did. Picking up dinner. That's generous of him, but he really didn't need to. I'm always happy to cook. What can I say? He insisted. I steered Mom into the living room where my dad was clicking through channels from his favorite recliner. I gave him a kiss on the top of the head, then said, "You guys have both been working so hard lately. Might as well let us pamper you." Mom settled into her chair with considerable arranging and rearranging of her bulk, not unlike the way my cockatoo friend Meringue fastidiously fluffs her feathers as she's settling onto her perch. "Just so it's understood, this isn't a Christmas present." "Don't worry, Mom, it's not. He just wanted to do something nice. Yuri might be a seer, but he wasn't raised in the craft. Trust me, I'm awesome at explaining our traditions, and Yuri knows no gifts." Mom was skeptical. Because there's nothing less meaningful than being trapped into an endless cycle of reciprocal obligation with the people you're supposed to love. That's just what I said. Actually, it was more like spellcrafters don't do Christmas presents. Same difference. I think Yuri actually seemed pretty relieved. Dad paused in his channel changing, looked at my mom and said, "Speaking of traditions, you told Dixon about the Magi, right?" Normally, I would have presumed this was some kind of setup for a cheesy joke, except that my mother stopped rearranging herself and said, "I thought you did." "Magi?" I said, as in the story about the guy who sold his pocket watch and the girl who cut off her hair. "As in the 3 wise men," my mother said testily. That sounds kind of biblical. I could have sworn my mother thought the Bible was full of baloney. Speaking of which, I hoped Yuri remembered to grab us a nice relish tray since I was feeling a mite peckish. I'm sure it's all just superstition," Dad said. Mom gave him her patented single squinty eyeball look. And since when does superstition stop a spellcrafter from doing something? Everyone knows superstition is just the poor cousin of luck. The way my parents explained it to me, the Magi were the first seer and scrivener. I supposed legends had to start somewhere, but aren't there supposed to be 3 Magi? The third guy was their customer, Mom said. Huh, lucky him. I wonder if they crafted a way for his camel to go faster, or at least not spit so much. The Magi didn't turn up for every single one of their Messiah's birthdays bearing gifts, just the first one. And so, it's Scrivener tradition to surprise your partner with a small gift on your first Christmas together. In fact, my father said, it's bad luck if you don't. And you're just telling me this now? Mom looked somewhat chagrined. We meant to say something. You know how crazy it's been at the shop. And now I've got nothing for Yuri. I scrambled to recall if I'd seen any stores open on our way over, but all I could think of was the car wash with the big inflatable noodle guy flailing around in the parking lot. Was a premium car wash a good gift? Maybe for some people, but if I ran the pickup truck through the high-powered water jets, I'd likely blast off the rust that was holding on the fender. Oh, it's too late to shop online, and all the local stores are closed. How about the gas station? Mom suggested. The one by the highway to Strangeburg is open 24/7. Dad set down the remote, pried himself from the recliner, and dusted his hands together. Before Dixon tries to figure out how to make an air freshener and a pack of pork rinds look festive, I suggest he take a gander at the stash.
Thank you so much. This makes me so excited to write more spellcraft. I can't wait.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I am so happy to get to revisit these characters and get to play around in this world. I love it.
You know, that actually takes us into a question that I got. So I canvassed our readers for some questions, and Natalie was asking how it is that you maintain the consistency of voice and character and energy from one project to the next, because she had listened to our first collection and then recently re-listened to that, and then back to back did it with the second collection, and she just was really impressed with your consistency.
Oh, yay, thank you. It's there's a few different things. So there's something that I use in character voice finding that I call trigger phrases. I don't know if other narrators may have a different term for it, but the idea that there are certain phrases that you can find that will snap you into whether it's an accent or a character in these cases. So what I'll do is I will find something that what will this character say that nobody else on earth would ever say, and that's kind of a quick way to click into that. Yuri's, I couldn't remember the last time we talked, but I have since written it down and remember. Yuri's was never happy, horrible, which is not nearly as dark as it may sound, but it the vowel changes that from never to never and happy to happy are very helpful, and then that being kind of a never happy, horrible, and then there's Yuri. And
He's never said that, but it sounds
right,
like him.
yeah, it's not even if it's not in the book. It's a way to slip over. And the other thing that I've done is I have a big old sound file just labeled, I think, character voice benchmark with whenever a new book with a bunch of character voices starts, I'll take 30 odd seconds of each voice that I want to do and lay those out so that in the future I can go back and just listen to those snippets and find that sound again if it's weeks later or months later that I'm revisiting the characters.
I actually do re-listen sometimes, but not in any structured way. Like I'll be in the car, and if I have to drive somewhere that's more than 10 minutes away, I might pop on a scene from the book. Just it inspires me, I think, to rehear them in your voice. And I was listening recently to the scene between Yuri and Uncle Fonzo when they're rowing across the lake, and Uncle Fonzo has an outboard motor, and and Yuri is it's just plowing across the lake, and Fonzo is going, just got it, almost there. Yeah, just one more try, and your comedic timing is so freaking hilarious there. I just was so delighted with the way that scene came out.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's if I remember, that's an intense action scene too, because they're
It
trying to,
is. Yep, yep.
without
And it's
spoilers,
kind of
if you know,
harrowing because
yeah,
Dixon's in danger and they're going to save him. But I think it needed a little bit of levity, and so it was just the right amount that you played it just right with the lightness of Fonzo just making an effort, like, yep, almost there, one
we
more
got it,
try,
we
we
got
got
it.
it. And it's, I don't remember it started by the time they got over, or if it would
I
just
think it's
was
right as they
right
pretty
as
much
they
right as
pull
they
up,
get
it
there.
kind of chugs to life. Yeah.
Right, and that's how life falls together sometimes. Is these, almost there, almost there. It is silly, and there is a humor to it, but there's also, I hope, a truth to it and an honesty to it with the characters. Um,
I think there's a certain amount of darkness in the series, and I need to be very careful about lightening the darkness up with touches of humor, because I think overall the function of the series was to be an escape, just a
mhm.
kind of a silly, funny, fun escape. And I started writing it in at the very end of 2018, and so it came out at the beginning of 2019, and then the audio came out at the end of 2019. Is my timeline about right?
I think so. Okay.
Yeah, so it was like right in place for the dumpster fire of 2020.
Yeah.
And I do often say I'm in the right place at the right time, but I generally write darker. And to have a fluffy series come out right when I feel that a lot of people really needed to read a fluffy series where the characters were just sweet and good, you know, um, it just ended up in the right spot. But Jackie was asking if we would get more into Russia, because the tantalizing glimpses that we saw of Yuri's time in Russia were interesting.
Yeah.
And I think they are, but I think uh, maybe glimpses are all we're going to get, because he is solidly in America now, and this is his place. And I think he had a really hard time of it in Russia. So um, when I when I give you bits of his backstory, I'm going to be careful, because I have to be very careful to maintain the balance of spellcraft and not let it get too dark.
Yeah, his background seems like where some of that darkness could slip in if it were going to. But it is a very interesting contrast to the world of Pinion Bay when we see, which is I think exactly how you write it. When we see in I think it's in Don't Rock the Boardwalk, when we see him first meeting a the old woman in Russia, who I believe is a scrivener.
Yes.
Um, and or is she a seer? No, she's a seer, isn't she? In
She's a scrivener. She's a scrivener who trains him, and she's looking at some graffiti and trying to figure out if there's any other gay people around, or if it's just him because he's so isolated. But there's a scrivening under the graffiti that keeps getting painted over, and he can see it, or he can feel the vibration of it, and she notices him staring at it.
which is such a beautiful layered scene for so many reasons. Seeing the difference between his life in America and his life in Russia, seeing what it would be like for someone to first discover, oh, there's other people who can see that, who have this power to see beyond, and also that as an analogy for, oh, there's other gay people in the world. Oh, this is, I'm not strange. This is okay. Is uh, just this really nice multi-layered thing, I think, in that bit.
I think that having somebody who is an outsider fit in is probably a thread that goes through all of my work, is being the odd one out or being the underdog, and finally finding that spot where you click in, where everything that you thought was a disadvantage is an advantage.
Yeah.
You know, and finding people who don't love you in spite of what you are, but because of what you are, is, I would almost say, the theme of like my whole body of work.
It very much shines through, and that I just from the little snippet that we just did of present tense coming out next week. You said
I'm hoping Monday.
okay, coming out Monday. The book version.
Yes.
That's something that very much flows through that too. Is the acceptance that Dixon's family has for Yuri, just unquestioningly. Our son loves you. Wonderful, welcome. And it's a really nice, warm, beautiful thing that we need more of in the world. By golly.
Aw. So Dixon and his family. Dixon is very, very close with his family, and Yuri has become part of the family. And the family also has a business selling spellcraft, the magic that they do. And the question was whether Dixon gets pressure from his family to join in the family business. And I think he does fill in as needed.
Mhm.
Oh, the scene with the mime, he's manning the front desk because he
Right,
doesn't
right.
officially have to go in and do the training that they were going to have to do. But, you know, and I wanted to get your take on this because I think you have a really good feel for Johnny and Florica, his parents. But I think they would love it if he worked for them. But at the same time, I think they want something more for him. They want something more for him than to just work at the family shop, because I think they've always held him up as being the best and brightest one of the family. So in a way, they do want him to stay, but on the other hand, they would be proud of him if he eclipsed them.
Well, and that's something that's alluded to. I think it's in the very first book where he talks about sort of going off on a rumspringa before even trying to get quilled, before trying the quilling, the failed quilling ceremony. Spoilers in the first book. And that's because it was always assumed, because he was from this powerful line of scriveners, and he was just as you say, they would have thought of him as the best and the brightest. So there's not a question, but we get to encourage him to go out and see the world and have these experiences. um, I think the one thing, and you created these characters, so you know far better than I would. It seems to me that the most important part of it is that he is happy. The most important part of it for Johnny and Florica, and if Dixon is truly happy staying at home and working in the shop, I think they would be thrilled being near him and that they would support that. If he is happy going off into the world and doing uncrafting as he largely is now, then they're thrilled and happy and support that. Does that mesh with
Absolutely, you
your
know, and
take?
I hadn't thought about it that way, but yeah, absolutely. I think well, you know, you want to write the ideal parents for for your characters. Although it's funny, somebody once pointed out to me, because Florica is notoriously crabby. Um, she kind of takes no prisoners, and somebody mentioned to me that the way he treats her, so she'll say some really sort of acidic things, and it flies right over his head like, oh, that's great, yeah, mom, I love you too, you know. And somebody mentioned that loving her prepared him for being with Yuri, who is also rather grim. And Dixon sees
Interesting.
right through the grim, crusty exterior.
That's interesting. That hadn't occurred to me. That's whoever observed that. That's quite astute. That hadn't
They
occurred
they
to me.
will have to they will have to pipe up and remind me it was them.
Whoever it
Um,
was, well done.
yes. So with the quilling ceremony, um, I do get a lot of questions about how the quill works. What happens if something happens to the quill? what happens if somebody needs another quill? And part of me wants to just reserve coming down on that one way or the other because I'm going to have to see what the story needs. And the way I do a lot of my world building is I don't invent the rule until I need the rule. Then I invent the rule, and then I have to stick by it for the rest of the series, right? Or have a darn good reason why I don't. So I don't have anyone yet who has needed a new quill. Well,
Well,
Fonzo.
sort of.
Fonzo, I guess you could say.
Well,
So
he had a very specific set of
yes,
circumstances,
he
though.
did. His what's left of his quill is functional, and he is back at work. Um, but there was a point when I was writing, what was the last one?
What the
What the
frack?
frack? When I was writing that, where I kept mentioning that Dixon's quill was delicate and Dixon's quill
Mhm.
was small and there was an explosion, and I thought, I feel like I'm seeding the future destruction of his quill. And so I had to go back and take that all out because I wasn't. His quill is fine. He's fine. His quill is fine. He doesn't need a new quill, you know. But it is unusual that he knows the bird that gave him the quill. I think that's rare because the quilling ceremony is outside, and a wild bird generally would give you a feather. And I think that because the Voljetstvo is so headstrong, that if you, like, let's say you really wanted a pink flamingo quill and you locked yourself in a cage full of flamingos, like a janitor would walk in with a goose feather stuck to his shoe, and you would end up with that. You know what I mean? Like, you can't manipulate it. It won't be manipulated.
That's something else I love about this world is they often you'll hear people say, "Oh, the city is a character in such and such a work." The magic is a character in this series, which is not something I think I've seen before, and is really fun. That it's such a headstrong, as you say, a willful force.
I think Yuri is the one who actually personifies it the most too. You know, he's got very particular opinions about it. I think because it trained him the hard way,
Yeah.
not to not to get complacent, not to cut corners, and not to take it for granted.
Yeah.
So if you were about to be quilled, if you were at your quilling ceremony, what sort of feather would you be hoping would drop out of the sky on you?
I love this question. Um, so I love birds. I don't know a ton about them, but I love just looking out the window and watching birds. And I was thinking, what kind of bird would be perfect for that? And I thought, well, I love all things purple. Are there any purple birds out there? There is a bird called the violet-backed starling, which is the most stunning. It's the males are a stunning purple. The females are a drabber shade. Um, but this stunning iridescent purple. If you're able, look up pictures of this. It's the violet backed starling. I don't know how long the feathers are, so I may be dealing with the pin feathers. But just color wise, that would be thrilling to me. What about you? What's your
So I was thinking about it. Sabina was the one who really wanted a swan feather, and did she end up with a goose feather? I think that most
something like that?
scriveners end up with a hawk feather or a goose feather. Almost all of them, except Johnny got a turkey feather. Um,
Because of course.
yes, I think I would like an owl feather.
Ooh,
And I don't know a lot about owls, so it'd have to be a large owl, I think.
is it the wisdom personified that?
I think it's that they are sort of they have a spooky connotation. So like you see owls and Halloween type of things, but they're not a real obvious one. But yeah, also the wisdom for sure. Um, and North American, so I wouldn't be dealing with like a captive owl, I don't think. And I don't know that I've ever seen one. So
Hmm.
uh, they seem a bit elusive as well, maybe because they're nocturnal.
certainly heard them in the wild. I don't know that I've ever seen one in the wild either.
I see a lot of interesting wading birds around here. So I'm right on Lake Michigan. And there are, I mean, aside from a lot of seagulls, there are pelicans, ducks, a couple different kinds of ducks, and some bigger like egrets or some wading kind of thing. And there's one I recently saw that was just sort of standing on the beach like this, and we didn't know why, but so I went and looked them up, and it turned out that they don't have an oil coating on their wings, so they have to like stand there and dry them out. So I found a wading bird drying himself off.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So you had a few questions that some of your listeners asked.
I did. Let's see here. Tanya asked me a bunch of great questions here. Um, what made you choose this series as your first step into male narration? Um, I almost didn't. Is the longer answer. The short answer is the characters. The characters just grabbed me immediately when I read the audition sides, the script for the audition. Um, I saw the book a few weeks before I actually auditioned for it. I thought, man, these characters are great. I'd love to take a stab at this, but it's a romance. I don't really think of myself as having a romantic voice. I think I can do something goofier and sillier and more fun because that's one side of my personality, or maybe I can do a little bit more serious because that's another side of my personality. But romance, I don't know if I could hear that. Um, but for those couple weeks, I kept coming back to it and said, "Oh, it's still up. Oh, it's still up. Oh, it's still up. I don't know, maybe." And I found myself just starting to mess around with the different voices, just going about my day. And I finally said, "You know what? I gotta try this. Worst that's gonna happen is this nice Jordan Castillo Price lady is gonna laugh at me and say, 'Oh my gosh, what was he thinking?'" But I'm very glad I tried, and I think it turned out.
Oh, sure. You and me both. One thing I don't think I ever told you about this story, though, was that I was actually going, because you could go from the author end and you can go through Audible and listen to the various narrators.
Mhm.
And I had filtered down to people who did comedic, and I was actually inviting comedic narrators to come and read for me. So I had invited probably a good half dozen. And even of those who came and did an audition, yours was the one that really clicked. You were Dixon for sure. No one else could have possibly been Dixon. And then, it was icing on the cake that you also could do the Russian accent.
Yeah, that's pure luck of the draw. I took Russian in middle and high school. I speak maybe 2 words of it now, but it's the accent is something that has largely stuck with me as something that I can pull up, which was fortunate. Um, yeah, and talking of enjoying this and just sort of segueing through, Tanya also asks what my favorite story was in the series to bring to life, and I also want to ask you this. I'm happy to take it first. Um, in the first series, Something Stinks at the Spa was my favorite, which is for those who haven't listened to it recently, is they go to a spa. Yuri and Dixon go to a spa looking for Uncle Fonzo, and there's some mysterious something has happened with Spellcraft gone awry, and we've got a cast of colorful characters for them to interact with. And then in the newest collection, Don't Rock the Boardwalk, which similarly they go to in town, but another different venue, and they have a cast of colorful characters. And I think what draws me to those is those cast of colorful characters is getting to do Drew draws, or Quint, the scene with the businessman, and Yuri in the first book with Yuri massaging the businessman.
I think
Um,
that might be my favorite scene of the series is that awkward massage.
it's such It's such a delightful scene. There's the creepy stuffed animals for some reason that the last masseuse left in, and Yuri just finding a rolling pin. Um, and that's the other thing I think that draws me to those books is both of those two have Yuri being in uncomfortable situations.
I was
Whether
telling a friend of mine recently that I think with humor, it isn't about characters making wisecracks. It's almost more important to have the straight man reacting to the situation that is bizarre. I find that Yuri is probably the fan favorite character. And I think it's because you could tell he's always thinking, how the hell did I get here? You know?
I've had people before say very very kindly um, equate some of this stuff to old time radio, and I have a love and a background with old time radio, and that makes me think of Abbott and Costello in their era. Bud Abbott was he was the important one, and he was the straight man, and you could get a good funny man anywhere, but one in a million was a good straight man, and that it sounds like that's continued through to this.
I it's something that I probably was not aware of going in, but luckily there's instinct in play, I suppose.
Always handy.
So I'm trying to
Um,
think what else what other scenes I really like. I really like the Fonzo Yuri connection. So I think Dead Man's Quill might be my favorite. And I also liked The Strange Family a lot.
they're fun.
And I loved the uncomfortable dinner at the Strange's house. Yeah, and the Yuri Fonzo connection because I liked that Fonzo it's not that Fonzo is a surrogate father for him, but Fonzo showed him approval and encouragement where he expected derision. And you brought that to life really, really well. So that was one of my favorite things.
Their relationship is just lovely. They're it's not an opposites attract because there's no romance there, but there's an opposites working well together, opposites respecting each other, I guess, in a really interesting and unexpected way. That's so nice to read and get to play with.
In a way, Dixon and Yuri are opposites, but then in a way, they're similar enough where it matters as well because Dixon's whole family is phenomenally shady. And I think Yuri can respect that.
There there is there is a moment in the story that is coming up that's present tense to be released on this Monday. We hope there is a moment where Yuri stomps on someone's foot in order to get by them in the grocery store, and I don't have the exact line in front of me, but it's something to the effect of, "Well, he was a loud, obnoxious businessman talking about a trip to Tahiti, so yeah, I stepped on his foot, but I figured he was obnoxious, so it was probably." There's yeah, Yuri. I think Yuri can appreciate the pragmatism of something like that.
I mean, I think that if the Penn family was squeaky clean, Yuri would be slightly disdainful of them and think that they were suckers, you know? So I feel that he can respect the way they're kind of fast and loose with the truth.
I have another question here from Tanya, who says, not being a big fan of paranormal magic usually, Nick is who converted me to listening to genres outside my norm. Yay! Thank you, Tanya. So for you, Jordan, as an author, how do you feel about the narrator of your books being what brings you to new readers?
So I think I should probably admit that it's hard for me to hear you narrating anyone else's work because you're my narrator. But that aside, of course, I would love for you to have a career, and so I'm thrilled. I could not be more thrilled. I think that's the biggest win-win is if new readers come to me through you. What a delight! Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally jazzed.
It's very Yeah, I agree. It's exciting on my end too. I love the idea of just in the way that I sort of stumbled on male romance as something that I now really love. Um, Getting to bring other listeners to a new, I guess, subgenre, but a new part of the genre is great. I think that's so exciting to get to do.
Well, whenever I think about the fact that you almost did an audition, it really makes me think about how big pieces of our lives really hinge on one decision.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
who could have ever thought that like this would lead to that, you know?
Well, and that's something that comes out in the Spellcraft books too a lot. There's which is your talent for writing these Rube Goldberg-esque situations where there's one little thing that someone does that seems like a one-off and ends up being a pivotal point at the end of the story. Um, I'm thinking of something because I read it the most recently, something specific in present tense that is a similar moment.
I think cause and effect is crucial. Um, and I think that you can make anything fit into a story if you give it a good enough reason to be there. But if you don't, it just feels like you're forcing someone through your outline, you know, and it can fall flat. So cause and effect are critical in my stories, and but particularly spellcraft because I have such bizarre things happen that I want them to have a good reason to have happened, and not just because I thought it would be funny.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, and finding honesty in characters, finding honesty in the story, finding that is what makes what makes these wild worlds work. And these wild outlandish characters makes them work is finding that honesty and truth.
So did you have any more questions from your listeners?
Let's see here. I have one that I think we sort of tackled, which is Jordan, why did you choose Nick for this series? Um, Although if you want to talk about
Well, sure, you know, no, there could be no other Dixon pen. There just could not be any other Dixon pen.
um,
Mm-mm-mm.
and I think I can ask this. Any other projects planned for the two of you is another question. There is that.
Ah, absolutely, yeah.
Yep.
So there should be another uh, probably trilogy of novellas coming out in 2021.
Yay.
And then we'll put present tense, the Christmas story, in with that for the audio collection. Um, and as far as so this is going to also take place in Pinyon Bay, and this grouping of stories is going to go more into not the politics so much, but the workings of the spellcraft community.
Okay.
So what does the hand of the family do? What does the head of the circuit do? How do the circuits, and you know, what's that all about? So that's going to be the focus of the next grouping of stories.
Cool. I look forward to learning that.
As do I. Oh, and also Spellcraft will be coming out in French. So
Oh,
we're hoping to have book one come out for Valentine's Day 2021. So we not in audio. As far as I know, there probably would not be enough market for something that specific as male, French, paranormal audio.
you never know.
However, you know, but my translator, Terry Millian, is a big fan of paranormal and magic, and I think that this is right up his alley, and he will sit and play with and tinker with a pun until it's as interesting in French as it was in English. So I'm really excited to see how the series works in French.
And that's something we talked about a little in off camera as well. Is how does that work? Translating something that is so linguistically rich and has so much wordplay in it into another language.
I think that the translator has to be really, really fluent in both languages. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Otherwise, the puns are going to go over the translator's head. And then I think also the translator and the author have to have a good enough relationship that the translator is fine with asking as many questions as they want to. Like, does this mean this or that?
Sure.
Would you prefer I put it as this or that? Even naming all the conventions in the spellcraft world have turned out to be probably a lot more effort than I think a lot of translators might put in. So spellcraft doesn't translate. It's going to be calamancy, so it's the magic of calligraphy.
Okay.
The scriveners are inkers and the seers are illuminators.
Okay.
So it just it feels like every other word suddenly needs to be not just translated but figured out, like refigured as to like, this doesn't work in English, how can it work similarly in French and still be interesting and still sound good? So it's a big challenge.
Well, and it's almost like you're recreating, because these books, you have created a particular type of magic that works in a particular way, and it's almost having to recreate at least the language to describe that, which I'm sure must be daunting, but I hope rewarding
I think
or exciting.
Terry is a massive Harry Potter fan, so I kind of
Ah,
knew that this would be right up his alley of just figuring out how to name the spells and how to the terminology and the puns. Yeah, I knew he would be the best guy for it.
good.
So let's see, is there anything else that we need to talk about?
Um, we haven't talked about the exciting news from Love Bites yet.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Do you want to break the news?
Sure. So I found out just this morning, in fact, that we are in the running for Love Bites Reviews Audiobook of the Month for November 2020. And this is something that is voted upon by the public, so you too can go and give us a vote. It's at lovebitesreviews.com. Bites is spelled BYTES, reviews.com. And it's on their main page. You can scroll down to the news and announcements section, and you'll see the spot for that. I think it's only open for another few days. They seem to have a pretty short timeline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll just put a link and, yeah, hopefully some people will go give the collection a little bit of love. And if you haven't listened to the second collection yet, go do that because it's really, really good. Nick did such a good job. And yeah, Don't Rock the Boardwalk was a really good one too. That would be probably my second favorite. Dixon and Yuri get to infiltrate the boardwalk, which is sort of a very tight Carney-esque series of Pinion Bay characters, and and Dixon on the cruise ship or the cruise scow or whatever it was, the barge of the bay. That's right.
Just making up numbers. How what's the question? How deep is the bay at? 75 leagues. I don't know.
And what's behind that fence?
Wolverines.
Did I tell you I saw a Wolverine once?
I don't think I would know a Wolverine other than Hugh Jackman if I was looking right at it.
I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a badger. I just had no idea. I was walking, there was a natural formation called a natural bridge. It was just sort of this arch of stone off in the distance, and there was something walking across it on all four legs, and I was like, I don't know what that animal is. So I went and looked at North American mammals until I saw one that matched what I saw on the cover bridge, and it was a wolverine. So that's where the Wolverines in Pinion Bay came from.
How often do you get to run across a mystery critter? That's
I know. You think you've learned them all in kindergarten, but you haven't.
no, no. That's the Dr. Seuss book, right? On Beyond Zebra. There's more out there.
All right. Well, this has been awesome. And I was so pleased to hear you read present tense. And I hope that everybody comes out and grabs a copy of that on Monday and that they check out the Spellcraft collection, the second collection, which is also out.
Yes, yeah. I think we glossed over that a little bit at the top, but just to say it loud and proud. We've got the second collection of Spellcraft stories. It's out now on Audible. It is called the ABCs of Spellcraft Collection, Volume 2. We're getting very, very kind reviews. Thank you for everyone who has put in some wonderful reviews. And if you haven't gotten to listen to it, pick it up and listen. It's a lot of fun.
Thanks a bunch, Nick. It was really good to see you again.
Thank you, Jordan. It's great to talk to you.